Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is always a true honour to rise in the House of Commons and speak on behalf of the folks of Peterborough, Kawartha. And today it's a real honour because we get to present our opposition motion, a common sense opposition motion that will make life more affordable for Canadians. So I want to read it into the record for folks at home. That given that the carbon tax has proven to be a tax plan, not an environmental plan, the House call on the Liberal government to cancel the April 1st, 2024 carbon tax increase. Now, just so folks at home know, that planned tax increase on April 1st by this Liberal Prime Minister is 23%. Now, I don't know who they're speaking with, but I don't know anyone right now that can afford that. And that's the reality of it. People are really, really struggling after 8 years of this Prime Minister. And it's a sad reality. So how does the carbon tax contribute to the cost of living? And I want to share the story of Jen White. Jen White is this amazing, charismatic, young, she's actually not that young, I guess, but she just looks so young, and she has freckles, and she's just this dynamic woman who's talented.
Sounds like you.
And 8 years ago, she started her business, Emily May's Cookies. Her grandma gave her her recipes. She's so talented, and she's so community-minded. In fact, please, if you're watching, follow this woman on all social media, Emily May's Cookies. You will love it. You will not regret it. If you're a television producer, please pick this woman up and give her a show. So Jen, I saw her just before Christmas, and she looked more desperate than I'd ever seen her look in my life. And she's not a dramatic person by any means. And she said, Michelle, it's crippling me. The carbon tax is crippling me. And she kept talking about butter. And you can imagine how critical butter is when you run a bakery, when you make cookies. And she would buy upwards of 40 pounds of butter a week. And she said, Michelle, when I started my business 8 years ago, butter was $2.49. Today, you can expect to pay upwards of $10 for a pound of butter. In most communities, it's about $7.49. 10 is on the extreme end, but today it's about $7.49. That's a 200% increase. Shortly after the new year, I was scrolling through social media, and Jen made a post on Emily May's Cookies. And she said, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I have to close down my business. And I said, can I come talk to you? I want to talk to you. And she said, she's just so polite, right? And it's hard to get political. People don't want to get political. They like to be congenial, and they like to get along with people. But the reality is that every single thing comes back to politics. Everything comes back to policy. And today in this House, I heard one Liberal member say that the carbon tax is so minuscule it doesn't matter. $2.49 to $7.49. It's just a couple bucks. It's cents that adds up to dollars. Butter was the demise of this woman's heart and soul. And it is so simple. It's a household item that everyone should be able to afford. That is the reality of the carbon tax. And if that Liberal member who thinks it's so minuscule and doesn't understand it, I challenge that member to go speak with Jen. Go to the farmer where he has to pay the extra carbon tax to heat his barn, to pay the extra carbon tax to feed the cows the grain, to pay the extra carbon tax to ship the milk to the trucker. The trucker is going to ship the milk to the factory to make the butter, to the factory where they make the butter, where they have to pay extra carbon tax to heat the building to make the butter, to the trucker who has to ship it from the factory that makes the butter to the grocery store. Like, it's really common sense that this is going to be catastrophic for people. Jade phoned me this week, and she said, Michelle, I'm a single mom of 2 kids. I've worked really, really hard. I make $62,500 a year. And for the first time in my life, bill collectors are calling me. Like, this isn't, and politically, I don't even understand how the Liberals and NDP can stand here today and say, we want to increase the carbon tax. Because nobody wants that, not the premiers of this country, no constituents. Like, it's actually political suicide as well. It makes no sense. So I want to read into the record I asked folks to send me their heating bills. Michelle, I'm just sending a snapshot of our Enbridge bill that contains the carbon tax. This is for a family of 3 in a brick bungalow, approximately 1,000 square feet, heated by natural gas. The gas supply charge, $38.96. The federal carbon charge, $39.15. And wait, there's a tax on a tax. They can expect to pay $20.38 in HST. Hello, Michelle. I'm a resident of Ennismore and a widow who is trying her best to make ends meet since my husband's passing. Yesterday, I received my gas bill. I was shocked to see the total carbon tax applied to my bill. This is absolutely criminal. So the federal carbon charge is $104.33. The gas supply charge is $106.42. Oh, and the tax on a tax, let's not forget that, $49.59. Michelle, if the federal government wants to charge us the carbon tax, it should be on the gas used, not other fees like delivery or transportation. It's like charging someone the carbon tax on buying a coffee in the gas station on the same bill. I use $28 in gas. The carbon price is $28. Sounds like 100% tax to me. It should be removed. I'm for supporting the reduction of carbon, but alternatives are too expensive to implement. We're all struggling to get by, and this isn't helping. Food or heat, right? This one, federal carbon charge, $94.91. Gas supply charge, $101.27. HST on that, $53.28. Every member in this House should be asking their constituents to do the same thing. We were elected to create policy to help Canadians. This is genuinely hurting them. Full stop. And there's been members of the opposite party, and good for them to have the courage to stand up, and I'm looking at one right now to say that this doesn't work. Like, thank you. He lives in Newfoundland and Labrador, and he knows, he clearly listens to his constituents. Not one emission target has been met. And I think what's wild is we are of human, there is commonalities between us in this House. And to sit across and say, we want, that Conservatives want the planet to burn, like, what? It's the ideology and the belief system is so deep, I can't even believe it in this place. The Conservatives have put forward a four-prong approach in this session, and we do have the solutions. The reality is life wasn't this hard before this Prime Minister, and it doesn't have to be this hard after him. And it's going to be a lot of work to get out of this. I understand that. And I think there are incredible people with incredible ideas that really, truly innovate and are going to revolutionize our world. But carbon tax is not it. We need to axe the tax. We need to build more houses. We need to fix the budget. And we need to stop the crime. And so the first piece of that, of axing the tax, is the simplest and most common sense thing to do. And everybody who's watching at home, they're so frustrated by this place, and I want you to know we are too. We are too. Because what are you guys doing? Well, we're in opposition, and the NDP and the Liberals signed a coalition. They'll call it a supply agreement. You can, call it whatever you want, tomato, tomato. The reality is they're going to work together for a majority. But we know, Conservatives know, the majority of you watching at home do not want this tax. We know that. We will not stop We will continue to fight for this, and I urge every member to do the right thing and vote for this motion and axe the tax. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. How things change for a bumper sticker. You know, in 2021, including this member that just spoke, I actually campaigned on an election platform that had a price on pollution. There is actually 19 members that not only campaigned on it in 2021, but also campaigned on it in 2008. 19 Conservative members, including the leader of the Conservative Party, Madam Speaker. Oh, how things have changed. As other countries in Europe are accepting the need for a price on pollution, even in many American states, places south of Canada, we recognize that the environment matters. Why does the Conservative Party today, that far-right Magna Party, in so much disagreement in recognizing the climate issues need to be addressed? When will the Conservative Party come out with a climate?
Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think what the member opposite is talking about is listening, gathering data, and as a real leader would do, recognize when something that you're doing doesn't work. And that's actually what we're asking the Liberals to do today. Instead of doubling down on something that they just believe is great, we're saying, listen, the data is in. This carbon tax is not helping anyone. It is not an environmental plan. There have been no targets met. A true leader listens and pivots and changes according to the needs of the people it is elected to serve. That is exactly what leadership is, and that is exactly not what the Liberals are doing.
Questions et commentaires, l'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
Madame la Présidente, alors la députée en ouverture de discours a lu.
Thank you very much. The member read the motion, which I will also do, that given that the carbon tax is a tax and not environmental measure, that the government be asked to remove the carbon tax. And I would propose that tax credits to oil companies for carbon capture, that is also a tax measure, much more so than an environmental measure. So, in order to be consistent, would the member also think that we should get rid of carbon capture tax credits?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the question. The reality is you have to axe the tax. The people and Canadians are taxed into oblivion. Those bills I read into the record are asinine. You're being taxed on a tax. Yep. Go back to the butter, please. If you take away anything, the butter effect. It's melting away businesses and families. When butter goes from $2.49 to $7.49 in 8 years, that is catastrophic. It is the one example of how this carbon tax does not work. Get rid of the tax.
Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my friend from Peterborough-Kawartha for her speech. I do care about the price of butter. I'm a cook, and I admit that I tend to go the Julia Child route. If there's more butter in the recipe, it never hurt anybody. But I know the price of butter has gone really sky high, but I just Googled to check the price of butter in Canada, the price of butter in the U.S., both countries have increased dramatically. And the reason, and I've dug into it a bit because I was prompted by this, and I do wish Emily May's cookies the very best. I double-checked, we're not related. Hers is M-A-E, I'm M-A-Y. But anyway, wish her the best. But the price of butter in Canada and the U.S., where they don't have a carbon price, has gone sky high. Explanation, when you look for it, is that the heat waves through the summer meant that the cows produced less milk at the same time that consumer demand for dairy products like ice cream, because it was hot, went sky high. So you ended up having a double whammy for dairy producers. I'm meeting with dairy producers next week. I can ask them about it. But the price of butter in the U.S. ranges in U.S. dollars from $2.92 a pound to $8.76 a pound, which converts to Canadian dollars from $3.92 a pound to $11.57 a pound.
I have to give the honourable member for Peterborough Kawartha a few seconds to answer, like 20 seconds.
And thank you to my colleague for the question. I think if you have any conversation with these dairy farmers, they will tell you without a doubt that this carbon tax is crippling them. This is across the board, and that's what Bill C-324 is about, right? And that's what I would push back on. And so
we have to resume debate. The honourable member.